Well, welcome to another episode of NFL Fantasy Matchup. Jed, you're stuck with me today because last week where was I? San Francisco. I was in San
Yeah,
Francisco last week recording a series of interviews. And so this week it's back to me and you with
yeah.
Jimmy. I don't know what he's doing,
Jimmy's
racing.
out racing. Yeah, he's racing cars, which is crazy. We got to hear about how that goes. But the other thing is, what we got to talk about today too? I'm wondering how many people out there are going to watch the Mike Tyson against Jake Paul fight tonight on Netflix. First time
Yes.
Netflix doing a live thing, and whether or not you think it's real, and then if you're going to bet on it. Like I'm
Yeah.
itching to bet on it, but I'm being cautious because I'm not sure if it's really real.
Yeah. And also a lot of times, how long will Mike Tyson, is he just overrated, so old,
Yeah,
everything?
no.
Because the last couple of times he's been out, he's been knocked out pretty fast. I would say I would go against and bet against Mike Tyson this one.
Oh, but I cannot stand Jake Paul, so I want to see him get knocked out. I saw one of my friends told me that if Jake Paul wins, it feels the same as Trump winning, and so I was
Mhm.
like, oh man. But the thing is, Tommy, they shortened it to 2 minute rounds, and it's only 8 rounds. And the biggest thing is they're using um, basically different gloves. It's like heavier gloves, which make the impact less. So it should be they're kind of protecting. I think Paul that hurts Tyson because it takes away from some of his power.
Plus, he's old.
Yeah, he is old.
He's
He is
old.
old. But I don't know. Having grown up in the '80s, man, I
Yeah.
love Mike Tyson. I want to see him win and knock him out.
Oh,
That would be
Mike
great.
Tyson punch out.
Oh, that was the best game. Absolutely best game.
Yeah. Jed, disappointingly, I have to share. I have to hold off on betting a little bit. I'm telling you, there's a danger in betting.
Oh
And I
yes.
think a lot of times for the sake of my family, I realized the last couple of weeks, I was winning a lot. I was winning $100 every single day. I said, wow, I'm so obsessed with this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm just watching all the games, the next game, the next game. All right, I just bet the 7 o'clock games. Now I can bet the 9 o'clock games. I said, "Oh my gosh, this is something I have to be careful of."
Well, I'm glad you recognize it, and yeah, you definitely. I mean, if you recognize it and see it, pull yourself out because that is it is. There's a lot of studies. I saw one in the Atlantic that was talking about how the decision to legalize gambling in the U.S. Beyond Nevada, beyond Las Vegas, just how the ramifications have really been pretty negative, and that's interesting coming from a progressive outlet like the
Yeah,
Atlantic even acknowledging it. So I totally hear you, and I hope anyone out there, you got to be able to recognize yourself and know when to
yeah.
say when.
Especially the live betting, because at any minute you can sit there. Oh my gosh, the Orlando Magic is down by 10, and you could bet for them to be under 100, and they're at 60. This is great. Let's put in $10.
Yeah, yeah.
And it changes up a little bit. Okay, let's put another $20, and you can just sit there. And I was doing great, Jed. I was winning so much.
Well, that's what gets you. I'm obviously losing. Nobody wants to lose, so that kind of helps you. But when you're winning, that's when. And I've always said the reason I've always enjoyed gambling is the very first time I ever did any gambling. I was in Vegas with a friend from work. We played the craps table, and I won about $800 in 30 minutes, and it just hooked me. I was like, I could not believe you could win so much money that quickly. And so ever since then, it's been something I've dabbled in, but have to definitely be
Yeah,
careful about.
yeah. Well, hey, let's talk a little bit about the news and notes yesterday. Hey,
Yep.
the game yesterday was boring. Terry McLaren,
Oh,
I
killed
really
me.
needed him to do well. He was
Yes,
terrible.
McClare. Oh, yeah. A lot of the Washington players, if you were betting on Washington players, even Jaden Daniels, he barely salvaged, with the touchdown late. I think he only had 13 or 14 points. You got a little bit out of Robinson with the touchdown, but McLaren killed you. Austin Eckler got a little bit at the end there. So, but it was a tough night if you were depending on any of the Redskins, any of the Commanders. The
But for
Redskins.
the guys out there who own Brian Robinson, it is good to see him back because
Yep.
as much as Austin Eckler is serviceable, it doesn't beat what Brian Robinson could bring to the table.
Yeah, for sure. And then on the flip side, Philadelphia, I mean, Saquon Barkley coming through at the end, two touchdowns. I mean, it was
Yeah,
late, but he got two
yeah,
touchdowns,
yeah.
almost 200 yards. And then even Jalen Hurts with that had another tush push touchdown. One thing they were saying, Jalen Hurts, I think, has 8 touchdowns this year. And if you imagine if Saquon Barkley got that, oh my goodness, his
Mhm.
numbers would be even better. And most people got him in the second round. So Barkley has been an absolute steal.
That was always a concern I have with Saquon Barkley. Okay, is he going to be good? Because man, he is so injury prone, especially in New York. But he's been I mean, in this
Oh,
offense,
lights
he's
out.
been so good.
Lights out. And of course, this is one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. We should have, in hindsight, always we look back and we're like, why did we think everyone was worried about the touchdowns going to Jalen Hurts? But Barkley has been awesome. I think, it's really between Barkley and Derrick Henry, really, is
Yeah.
the two number ones.
It does make me sit there, Jed. I'm not sure if there's a stat out there. I bet you there is in terms of the strength of the offensive line.
Yeah.
Sometimes we should start looking at that because it really does make a huge deal with Dallas, Baltimore, Dallas back in the day, not this year, but
Yeah.
Baltimore.
Oh, definitely. That is something I do look at every year because I think you can take a running back who's a little bit more mediocre, stick them behind a good line, and all of a sudden they're at number one that you need to be considering. So I think that's really good. The other thing I will mention, though, if you had AJ Brown, if you were counting on AJ Brown, if you're counting on Devonta Smith, also not great numbers. I mean, okay, but no huge
Yeah.
touchdowns, no big numbers. So it was a tough game all around.
Yeah, well, AJ Brown, 5 catches, 65 yards, no touchdowns, none of that stuff. But yeah. I mean, hey, you can't go wrong with Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts. But I think a lot of times Jaden Daniels is going to bounce back. He's shown Terry McLaurin is going to bounce back.
Yeah, exactly. Those guys are great. I think Daniels has awesome future. Really excited for him. So, but we'll see. And now we're in week 11. So this for everybody, this is your kind of do or die moments. You gotta. To me, you have to start to swing, take some swings for the fences. So in a couple leagues, I'm just outside of the playoff teams, and as an example, in one league, I have Sam Darnold who's dealing with a finger injury. And so I'm actually going to sit him and play Russell Wilson because Russell Wilson, Pittsburgh, they're playing Baltimore. We know Baltimore's defense has had some problems this year. So I'm thinking that there could be some points there. Those are the kind of risks you maybe have to take to swing and see if you can, really get some big numbers and win this week.
Yeah. Like, for instance, a lot of times the part where I was taking a risk, Jed, I have Kyler Murray in one of my leagues, Drake London, Terry McLaurin, J.K. Dobbins, Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nacua, Chuba Hubbard, Tracy, Najee Harris, George Pickens, right?
Good
and
team.
T.J. Hawkinson.
Yeah.
Where I was really concerned was Kyler Murray. So I actually then
he's on bye this week too. He's on a bye this week.
Yeah, so I traded a bunch of players because there's so many players for Joe Burrow and Garrett Wilson.
Nice. I mean, Joe Burrow, so since that's a good matchup. Cincinnati's playing Los Angeles, the Chargers. They're the Sunday evening game. It's one of the higher lines at 47.5, meaning that they think there's going to be a lot of scoring. And Burrows has been great, even though this is where fantasy is different than real life. Cincinnati hasn't been winning, but Burrows has been lights out. Yeah. So I would definitely, Joe Burrow is a great pick, great play. And what was the other one? Drake London, you said?
Garrett Wilson.
Oh, yeah, Garrett Wilson. Yeah, the Jets, that has been really tricky. Yeah. Has he turned it around a little bit?
Not last game, but the game before that, he was very good. But I had to get rid of Puka Nacua, J.K. Dobbins, all that stuff. But the only thing is, this is where you have all your depth, and week 11, playoffs is coming in about 2 or 3 weeks. You're taking a chance, and I'm sitting there. Najee Harris is on my bench, but I have Amon-Ra St. Brown, all those things. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, and that's smart. Basically trading from your bench to get starters. Like this is where if you're holding 2 quarterbacks, for example, so one of your quarterbacks is sitting on your bench, even though he's a really good quarterback, if you need to make that trade or drop that to pick up someone who could be a starter, you got to make that choice because you just need to win now. I was looking and so the Jets are playing the Colts. That's a good matchup at home. So I think, Garrett Wilson could, there could be some good points there.
You hate to say this, right? Davante Adams, I think he's way past his prime.
Yeah, what happened? It's been surprising that he has not. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll see this week but it's been surprising. I thought he'd be much more dominant right away, but nothing.
They do. I mean, those two do a lot of complaining with a lot of both. I'm mentioning Rodgers as well as Adams.
Yeah, I definitely have to admit I have been enjoying Rodgers suffering a little bit. It's been good.
Yeah, speaking of complaining, a lot of times, you know who complains a lot? Bears players.
Well, you know what? They have a lot to complain about. Bears fans, we complain a lot too because it has been sad. Boy, what a turnaround! Everyone was so happy, after beating Jacksonville and whatnot, and then all of a sudden just looking horrible last week, against New England. So it's been a tough week.
It is funny how the Bears were looking for a new offensive coordinator, and everyone they interviewed, they went with Shane Waldron. All the other guys that they interview are doing really well. Shane Waldron is fired now with 9 games into the season.
Yeah, it's sad. And then I saw this summary that was saying how it's just this repetitive cycle in Chicago where now you get a new offensive coordinator, maybe we get a new head coach, and then they have to deal with a quarterback that they didn't draft, and so then becomes this vicious cycle where then they're looking for the next one, and it's just really sad. I had such high hopes, but and still do, but we'll have to see. They're playing Green Bay this week. It's going to be a tough game for the Bears.
Yeah, I still remember even the Lovey Smith era as well
Yep.
too. You
Yep.
went through Mike Tice, you went through Mike Martz, you went through all those guys over and over and over again. And here, a lot of times you have Caleb Williams. He's going on his second offensive coordinator. They're probably going to fire the coach if he doesn't do well next year. So he's
Yep.
going to have to learn a whole new system next year.
Exactly. And you just wonder what that does to their. This was to the really, I mean, Aaron Rodgers took some heat for some of the comments he made about this, but I did think his point was valid, which was he was saying there are no young quarterbacks now who come in and just sit for a year to learn an offensive system. We're just expecting them to go right away and to figure things out. And so it really does hurt. I think if you look at the quarterbacks, the young quarterbacks, it hurts their progression. It hurts their growth.
Well, I still remember one quarterback, Super Bowl quarterback. He never won. Steve McNair.
Yep.
Steve McNair sat for
Oh,
5 years
yeah.
over at Tennessee before he actually started a game.
Yeah.
And so you wonder in Anthony Richardson, or there's that pressure to start the quarterback right away. Trey Lance is a great example.
Yeah. Well, in both like Troy Aikman and even Peyton Manning, if you remember, they both started like 1-14 or
Yeah.
1-15. They were horrible. I mean, they were, but there was time. There was kind of commitment to them and time to develop them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there is a that docu series on Netflix on Steve McNair. If you haven't seen it, is really
Yes.
good. I mean, obviously
Yes.
a sad story, but really, really good.
Yeah. But honestly, everyone's looking always for someone like a Jaden Daniels who comes right out the
Yeah.
gate. And then all the other guys, they just get compared. Look at Drake May is doing well.
Yeah.
We're all sitting there dumping on Caleb Williams. Well, he's sulking. He doesn't have a good attitude, all of that stuff. And you're setting up the guy for failure.
Well, look at Jordan Love. Everyone was so happy with Jordan Love. He's had a tough year. I mean, they've won a few good games, but he hasn't been as great as he was previously last year. So it's the same thing. I think once you find your guy, you have to be willing to stick with them because look at how many quarterbacks. Look at Joe Flacco. How many quarterbacks really it's into their 30s when they're now starting to understand how to quickly read defenses, how to make those decisions, and you just have to wait. And so I hope that they're a little more patient, with Caleb.
Did you see they are bringing back Anthony Richardson?
Yeah, to start, I was shocked to see that, but good for him. I mean, it feels like he has the physical tools. He has definitely had a down year. He's a little bit
Yeah.
of a regression, but I hope that he can turn it back around.
He does have the arm. It's just learning how to make sure that he has the correct accuracy in terms of his passes. And
Yeah.
hopefully the game will slow down for him to really figure it out.
Exactly. I think that is exactly the point is the ability to slow down the game, right? Where things just kind of you understand, you know where to look. That's what it feels like with Caleb Williams right now. I saw some stat on how his accuracy is one of the worst of this year. And I think it's just a function of not knowing where to look, taking those easy check
Yeah.
downs. It's like those kind of things, it takes some time for them to figure out.
But it does feel like going back to the Bears that Hail Mary really affected them because Caleb Williams had come back. He was doing really well. They had come and they went up, and the next thing you know, they lost a Hail Mary in the last 2 games. They've been terrible.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what's been going on, but we'll see.
Speaking of that, let me just complain also another thing. I have Bears Packers tickets, could not sell it. Could not sell it.
No.
I was
Wow.
sitting there waiting. I said, "Oh, I'm gonna make a killing off this." I always make a killing.
Yeah.
Couldn't sell it, so I had to sell it way, way less than I thought I wanted to.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I wonder. So I guess there was not as much interest this year because it's in Chicago too, right? So
Yes,
yeah.
I sold my Patriots tickets right before the Washington game. I sold it for $350 a ticket, right?
Wow.
And I said,
Mhm.
surely I'm going to
Yeah.
get more for. I sold that thing for 180. It was yesterday night. I said, man, I got to get rid of
Wow.
this thing. And I
Wow.
lowered it down from 380. That nothing was biting at 250. That I put it at 200. It was just not biting. So I said 180. Then it got sold.
Wow. Wow. That's really interesting. Very telling too. But we'll see. Yeah, I think Green Bay's favored by 5.5 points. It's supposed to be low scoring at 40 points,
Yeah.
so it's not looking good for the Bears.
Jed, watch Green Bay. A lot of times, no matter how bad Green Bay is, they always seem to do well against the Bears. They always, and I bet you with no offensive line, they're going to get a lot of sacks.
Yeah, exactly. The offensive line has been the biggest problem. I know we finally got rid of what's his name that you were happy, that bad free agent signing for the Bears
Yes.
line. Yeah, but yeah, that has been the biggest problem, really. That's why, to me, I think you have to give Caleb some, slack because he's been under constant pressure as well. So it's not like he's had this perfect line protecting him.
You signed Nate Davis to a 3-year, $30 million contract. Are you serious? He was a top free agent when he was there. What happened to him? Did he just lose his mind? Did he just give up because he signed a huge contract? He was always absent. It was just frustrating.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, that consistency is what, I've always been disappointed in the Bears draft when they always spend, high draft picks on skill players, which I get, but we have to invest in the line. And it feels like they don't invest heavily draft picks in the line. And it feels like that's the best teams that they really build there.
Yeah. The criticism always with Ryan Poles is he drafting people like him when he was on the offensive line? Because he was terrible on the offensive line. So if you're judging people based on how you were playing, this is terrible.
Yeah, maybe that's the problem.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you, with Christian McCaffrey coming back up,
Yep.
Jordan Mason, everyone's dropping Jordan Mason.
Yeah.
I'm actually picking him up in a couple leagues just in case Christian McCaffrey goes down.
Yeah, no, I think that's a safe move. I personally did drop him. I wanted to keep him though because I was like, let's see if McCaffrey how his legs hold up for a couple games. And so, if you have the space, I do think that's smart. He could just as quickly as he turned things on, he could say, "Hey, you know what? I felt some pain," and the next
Yeah.
thing you know, Mason's a hot pickup.
Yeah, that's where I'm, especially come playoff time. He'll play a couple weeks. He'll pull a hamstring. They'll sit there. Let's shut him down, wait for the playoffs, and play him during the playoffs. That's what may happen. So as a result, I dropped Jawan Johnson and then picked up Jordan Mason.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. That is the kind of move. So if you are sitting pretty, if you're like already into the playoffs, or if you're in first or second, those are the kind of things you stash away someone like a Jordan Mason and see what's going to potentially have. Like I've got a couple flyers on Warren, although he got hurt behind Najee Harris. I was thinking like if Najee Harris got hurt, that'd be a good pickup.
Yeah.
So you got to take swings like that to set you up for the playoffs.
Yeah. And Jen, another swing I would probably get is I would consider Mike Evans. He's been out for a couple of weeks. People kind of forgot about him.
I did. That's a great one, boy. That's a great ad, Tommy. You're right because they're saying he could come back for the playoffs, right? I think so. That would be a really nice pick. So that's the thing. Go and look at your injured players. Who are the guys who maybe could come back, and then you have them for the playoff run, and you just add another superstar. Mike Evans would be amazing to add, right?
Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill. A lot of times he's dealing with that wrist injury. He's been having subpar games. Hey, look, if you just want to bet and take a chance, go bet on Tyreek Hill.
Oh man, the Dolphins, that messed me up last week. I thought for sure, I did not realize they were going to play that well. I thought the Rams were going to play better, but the Dolphins are starting to. And if Tua's now healthy, although I saw him get tackled a couple times watching that game, where I was like, man, I hope this guy's okay. But passing wise, you can see him finding his rhythm. So you're right. Someone like Tyreek Hill could be a great ad if anybody's dropped him.
Correct. Well, we only have a couple minutes left because you have to run for work today. So this is more of abbreviated sessions. What are some of the tidbits that you want to give out in here in the last couple?
Yeah, I was just going to say I've been watching the big line. So to me, the big games, Baltimore at Pittsburgh, a lot of points there. Obviously, get all of your players in. As I said, I think you could take a chance. I mean, I'm not a huge Russell Wilson fan, but I feel like there are points to be had there. The Seattle versus San Francisco game, I do feel like people have kind of forgotten about Geno Smith a little bit. If you're needing some quarterback help, that's a place you can go. You can look at the wide receivers there as well with Smith Enigma, and if anyone's dropped a Tyler Lockett, for example.
DK Metcalf.
Yeah, DK Metcalf, of course. And San Francisco has been turning it, with CMC has been great. He looked good. I think he got, did he get over 100 yards total rushing, I think, last time? Yeah, so he's looking good. And then you've got Cincinnati against Los Angeles we talked about. I think that's a great game to get some points there.
Yeah. And even with Cincinnati, a lot of times T. Higgins, it looks like he's going to be coming back after a multi-week absence as well too.
Yeah.
And look, Chase, they keep running that guy over and over again. He's been outstanding. Khalil Herbert is now on the team, but Chase Brown, I mean, they're just running him like crazy.
Yeah, and on the Chargers, don't sleep on Herbert has really been turning it on. And that one wide receiver, I think it's Quentin Johnson, I want to say.
Yep.
He's got, I think, touchdowns in 2 straight games, even though he doesn't have a ton. They don't throw it a lot. The Chargers have been running it a ton. They don't throw it a lot. But don't sleep on Herbert is a good quarterback. And so he's got to throw it to somebody. That could be someone you could get.
He was number 7 on your ranking in terms of quarterback last week. And I'm telling you, Chad, J.K. Dobbins has done really well for me.
Yeah, definitely one of the pickups of the year if you got him either late in the draft or off the free agent pickup pool. He's been solid.
Now, the only concern that I do have is they were playing Gus Edwards a little more than I wanted to.
Yeah, he came back from injury. So talking about injury, so that's someone where they're splitting the carries a little bit more.
Yeah. Another thing to look at is monitor Aaron Jones over in Minnesota a lot of times especially with his potential injury. I actually think it's Cam Akers is the one to own as the second running back.
Well, you love Cam Akers, so that could be a chance for a little comeback. But yeah, I'm curious to see how Minnesota's playing Tennessee this week. You know, they need a little bit of a bounce back. They've had a couple tough weeks. Tennessee is a good defense though, so we'll see if they can handle this. But Minnesota needs to put up some numbers and show that they're as dominant as they were before, because they've definitely dropped off a bit.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you very much. I know you have to run to work into Friday night, and here we are in week 11. And so in some sense, Jed, even hearing you, take a risk. A lot of times if you guys are doing well, take a risk. Take on some players like a Tyreek Hill or Mike Evans. Make some offers, or go to your figure out who's in last place and try to make an offer and see what happens.
Yeah, if you still have, this might be the last week for trades as well, or it might have been last week depending on your league. So if you still have space, do that. But agree, make some swings. I'll say in our 1K league, I'm in 3rd place, and it looks like Jimmy's in 4th place, and you're in 8th place, but you're still just like 2 games back or 1 game back. So you can still pop into the playoffs. So I'm hoping that we can make a strong push in this 1K league.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm really struggling. I think Burrow is on. But wow, I mean, I'm struggling recently these days.
Yeah, I think I played you either last week or the week before and squeaked one by you, but we'll see. You definitely have you're playing a beatable team this week. You're playing Isaac's team, which is in 7th place. So that would be actually they're right ahead of you. So see if you win this week, you'll be tied with him, and then your points, you should have more points, so you could leapfrog him, which would be really helpful.
But it all comes down to Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Jed.
Right. Yep. Good luck, everyone.
See ya.